The world, especially the dental world, lost a true legend when Bettie McKaig passed away. To me, she wasn't Dr. McKaig, though. She was my Aunt Bettie. She was my biggest fan, my friend, my mentor, and a leader who I looked up to and always will. Aunt Bettie gave me the countless hours of advice, both personally and professionally, and I am forever grateful for those deep conversations that pushed me out of my comfort zone. If she were here with us for the Bettie R. McKaig Memorial Lecture Series, I know that she would inspire you just as much as she inspired me throughout my life. In fact, she would encourage all of you to be resilient, stay patient, learn from others, and show some grit. I'm a better person, I'm a better woman, and I'm a better leader because of Bettie McKaig. My hope is that my aunt's trailblazing examples of leadership will live on forever, and that we will continue to draw inspiration from such a fabulous leader. Thank you so much.
I'd like to welcome everyone to our Bettie McKaig Women in Leadership, Embracing Global Equity and Sustainability webinar series. ICD Online is a digital platform for college communications, providing greater outreach and engagement with fellows and the dental community worldwide through live and recorded webinars, videos, and other online content. ICD Online offers innovative means for connection, education, and research in an increasingly virtual world. This production is an installment of the Bettie McKaig Women Leadership Series, which is a series of programs dedicated to women leadership within the ICD and the dental profession, providing a platform for female leaders to speak about their experiences, challenges, opportunities, and contributions, as well as share leadership resources and information. Thank you to all of our panelists so much for being here. My name is Dr. Amrita Patel. I am a general dentist that practices between New York and South Dakota. I chaired the New Dentist Committee for the New York State Dental Association, and I serve as the social media manager for ICD Global. I'm going to go right into introductions because we've got some amazing women here with me today. Dr. Margot Culata Norton specializes in restorative and cosmetic dentistry. She received her Doctor of Dental Surgery degree with distinction from Georgetown and was a Uniformed Services Health Professions Scholarship recipient, which means that she was commissioned as a lieutenant in the United States Naval Reserve and served 3 years at the Marine Corps Dental Recruit Depot in San Diego, California. After completing her Navy obligation, she moved back to Washington, where she still practices currently. She also became a clinical professor at her school, the Georgetown School of Dentistry. Throughout her career, she's established a distinguished history of professional and service involvement. She currently serves on the DC Dental Society Board of Directors, its foundation, and is chair of the Society Bylaws Committee. She served as president of the USA section of the International College of Dentists and also as president of the USA Section Foundation in 2020 and is currently the foundation's treasurer. Welcome, Dr. Culata Norton.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Brigadier General Dr. Angelica de Lara Torres. She created history in the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the AFP Dental Service for being the first female in the Chief Dental Service, as well as the first female Brigadier General in the AFP Dental Service since its creation in 1954. She was also the first female chief of the Air Force Dental Service. She has 2 amazing children and is happily married to Brigadier General Reynaldo Carrillo Torres. As such, this is a first in AFP history, as both husband and wife were appointed in the same military position in different terms. She's received many, many awards and decorations through all of her military and professional career, like an Outstanding Achievement Medal, a Chief of Staff AFP Commendation Medal and Ribbon, a Plaque of Merit, and a Military Commendation Medal. She's also a recipient of the AFP Scholarship Program, the National Defense Act, where she obtained her Master of Science in Dentistry and Orthodontics at the University of Philippines in Manila. She's a graduate of the AFP Command and General Staff course, where she received the Technical Administrative Service Award from the Deputy Chief of Staff, AFP, for obtaining the highest grade and graduating first among the TAS student officers. Dr. Torres is a recipient of 3 international fellowships: the International College of Dentists, the Pierre Fauchard Academy, and the International College of Continuing Education. She's also an associate member of the Association of Philippine Orthodontists and was assigned the position of the Chief of the Dental Service AFP upon appointment of the President of the Republic of the Philippines, and was then promoted to the next higher rank on the next day in 2020. She's the 36th Chief of the Dental Service AFP from February 26th, 2020 to present. Welcome, Dr. Angelica De Lara Torres.
Thank you.
And Dr. Sunita Verma, who I had the pleasure of featuring on our ICD Global social media. Dr. Verma qualified from the United Medical and Dental Schools of Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospitals in London in 1990. Her career has been exclusively in general practice, and she ran her own private practice in West London for over 23 years, and the practice won many, many awards. Dr. Verma was presented for an award as a winner in the category of Professional of the Year by the now King Charles. Her passion for elephants facilitated personally funding and assisting with a life-saving tooth operation of Steve, an African elephant in South Africa. She helped the veterinary team with the rhino dehorning project with the aim to reduce poaching as well. Recently, she set up a not-for-profit initiative called Project Malanga to provide solar lights to the Maasai villages in Tanzania. The project has provided 600 lights for 3 villages till date. The aim of the project is to improve education by having a reading light for children in their huts. Welcome, Dr. Verma.
Hello.
Thank you for being here all. So I want to make sure that our audience knows about International Women's Day and what this program is really all about. So for 2023, the International Women's Day campaign theme is Embrace Equity. And the focus is that equity is a must-have, and that a focus on gender equity needs to be a part of the makeup of every society. We need to talk about why equal opportunities aren't enough, and this is the focus of this year's mission. People all start from different places, so really practicing inclusion and belonging require equitable action. There's a lot more information on this on the International Women's Day website. We are going to get right into all of these great questions that we have for our panelists today, and I'd like to open the floor with this question. In the beginning, were there obstacles that you would describe now as diversities or differences that hindered your way to success? How did you cope and overcome these experiences or events?
Well, I guess I'll start. When I started into dentistry, it was in the 60s and 70s, and there weren't a lot of women in dentistry or in professions in general. So my biggest hindrance, actually, I think, became an asset to me in my success. But it was really the perception of what a woman's role should be. And I'll give an example. My dad, who was a dentist, all my life I told him I wanted to be a dentist. And by the time I was a senior in college, I called him to ask for money for the dental DAT, the dental aptitude test. And he said, "You're serious? You really want to be a dentist?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, what have I been telling you for the past, 15 years? Yes." And he said, "Well, why don't you be a hygienist?" There you go. That was the perception of what a woman's role should be. They wouldn't be the leader, they'd be in the support position. So I said to him, "Dad, I can be a hygienist, but I've already gone to 4 years of college. I have to go 2 more to be a hygienist. Well, I can go 4 more and be a dentist. What would you do?" And that actually really got him thinking, and it tended to change his perception. So that's been what I've been working with, really my whole career, is changing the perception that women are in a supportive role. And certainly as time has evolved in the last 40 years, women are becoming, have greater equity, but still have a long way to go.
As for me, I do believe that being in the military as a dentist, I had some obstacles to go through. And I do believe that the Armed Forces of the Philippines is a male-dominated organization, and it greatly demands physical strength that naturally favors men. However, during the training, despite competing with men, I did not look at it in that manner, but I rather look at it as collaborating with my co-officers who are male. So I believe that we could excel alongside men, even in military training, being a dentist, where it challenges not only our physical strength, but also our knowledge, our skills, our critical thinking, and our adaptability. Not that I am bragging, but when I graduated from my basic officer's course, I graduated #1 in both the military and the technical phase. And during my advanced officer's course, I also graduated #7 in the military phase, but #1 in the technical phase. What I'm saying is, we were given the chance to participate, no, together with men, and they recognize that though we have differences, being a male and a female, but rather the female were given fairness in all of the things that we do in the military. And I do believe that it has helped me build my career and be recognized in a male-dominated world. That's all that I can say.
If I could just add, I've traveled a lot, and I've traveled to a lot of places where there is definitely not equality for women or equity. In fact, equity doesn't even exist. So when you see the contrast, when you've traveled and you come, I'm based in London and West London, I feel so privileged actually, because I had open access to education like my male counterparts. So there was free education for myself as well as men. So I never really found any barrier. In fact, the only barriers I would say, being an Asian woman, were cultural within our communities, where women do have a different role than men, and women do have a specific role, mostly as homemakers. And although I wasn't discouraged, there wasn't so much encouragement either. So I feel very privileged that I was able to take advantage of what was available through education and able to get a good education and be able to enter dentistry. So I didn't find that many barriers.
Thank you all for those awesome answers. My next question is this: knowing that you all hold important positions and have some authority in your sectors, how do you plan to embrace equity, or how have you embraced equity?
So I'll start on that one. My career has been in general practice. So in a sense, I was breaking my own barriers of what I needed to do in my practice. If I wanted to educate myself, there was plenty of courses available, and I felt really privileged actually in dentistry. I could go to whichever field I wanted. There was plenty of opportunities for education, for mentorship, for training. And I wanted to pass that back within my practice to my team. So I had a publicly funded NHS practice when I first started, but I got so inspired by American dentistry and American customer care, which wasn't really present in the UK at the time. So I put myself on my own education program, clinically, mentorship programs with American speakers, with American coaches, to find out what customer care was. And I changed the whole brand of the practice. I went from a publicly funded kind of secure environment to a whole building plan of building, a one-year building plan of my practice, working within that practice within a building site, and then having a new business model and a new customer care model for my patients, because everything was then very patient-centric. So I really had to be motivated to be a really good leader, understand what the practice needed in order for me to then be able to provide a good pathway for mostly women that are generally working within my practice. And so we did that through a great training scheme and a great appraisal scheme, and understanding their needs and helping them to have whatever was available in the practice for training and help them in their individual ways in order for them to progress.
I did something similarly, again, starting practice when I did. I did have the opportunity to practice with my father, so I wasn't all by myself. However, I did find that there were very few females in the Washington, D.C. area and in dentistry in general. And there was a need for camaraderie and mentorship among women. And so at the time, there were probably about 10 or 12 of us women dentists in the area. And we actually started a women's study group called the Greater Academy of Women Dentistry. And it advocated for women in dentistry. The CE that we provided there was all women oriented, and health and wellness. And it was just a nice time to be together and to talk about what problems we were having in our practices, in the profession, in our organizations. And I'm proud to say that that organization has grown to about 150 today. I go to one of their meetings and it's just dynamic. There's so many women there mentoring each other and just feeling good about themselves. And they bring that back to their own practices. And like yours, most of our practices are female oriented, having females in the practice. But the organizations that we belong to are still predominantly male, still predominantly white. And so anything that we can do to mentor and promote women is important. And so this study group, along with the mentoring that I do for high school and college students in my own practice, tries to empower women that we can be as good as, if not better than men.
Yeah. Presently, I can say that I am the most senior female officer in the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And being a dental officer, I have been given the designation as the Vice Chairperson for the Gender and Development Focal Point Technical Working Group. And that gave me an opportunity to be part in setting the stage for the Armed Forces of the Philippines' future equity strategy. So being at the helm of the AFP Dental Service, our recruitment strategy is focused on skills and not on one's gender. Promotions were being based on meritocracy and ability to perform respective tasks. Thus, I believe that these factors embraced equity. That's all I can say.
Thank you for that. I've got a follow-up question for you, Dr. Verma. Do you think that there's different aspects of equity that need to be addressed or maybe made more aware of in non-developed countries, rather, where equity doesn't exist? Are there barriers that we maybe as females in more modernized countries don't see?
So if I go back to when I went to Tanzania last year, so I had the opportunity to trek with Maasai, the indigenous people of East Africa, the Maasai people. You may have seen they live off-grid and they literally are living in huts, and they live a very traditional lifestyle, semi-pastoral, where they're just looking after their cows. And when I did this project, actually, I was speaking to our two guides online, just as we are every day. And we became friends. So I learned a lot more about their culture. And what I came to realize is that women have no equality anyway. So it's a male society built for men by men, actually, and that's how it's been traditionally. So much so that the women have the status of a goat. That's actually well known. So the men, they love their cows. They have a massive affinity for their cows. And below that is a goat. So the women have the status of a goat. So you can imagine the men are allowed to marry several times, up to 4 wives. They have many, many children. And it's the society for men. So as lovely as our guides were, I got to realize that actually the women have no expectation for themselves, because really they're cooped up in their little huts. They build the houses. They're doing all the labor. They're getting the wood from the forest. They're getting the water. They're giving birth to children, looking after them. And they don't even have a society. So they don't have a society where they're able to go and meet each other. They are literally mostly cooped up in their own homes. So they don't even have that support system to even have, they don't have the voice. So when you look at the contrast to see how we are here, and you can really see where there's no equality, but no equity, then you realize actually what a contrast in our communities that we have. And when I've been speaking and coaching our guides, because the only way we can actually get to those women is through the men, because the men are all the decision makers. So why would men need to change when they're privileged already in society and it works for them? So that's, you know, when you look at it, when we look at that contrast and you think, why would these men ever need to change? And I worked with those men every day, encouraging them about education for the children, education for the women. That's what I talked to them every day about. And we were very friendly and they talked to me fine, but that change in the community I don't think it's even on the agenda. So, just giving an example of where it really doesn't exist. I've experienced it.
Yeah, and definitely when you kind of experience that firsthand, it must change your perspective and really kind of open your eyes to things that sometimes we don't see. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. Looking back at your journey as leaders in your respective communities, what would you change to improve equity for women?
Well, I do believe throughout my career, it was really a challenge to balance my time as a working person and for my family, being a wife and a mother of two. I believe that I can change or improve equity by looking into the command thrust that I have been giving while leading the AFP Dental Service, and I'd like to share it with you. I connote it with 3 C's. No, first is I go for camaraderie, being open to others and feel one with others. And I also go for cooperation. Cooperation is manifested in a basic sense of justice and fairness and concern to others. And my last C is caring to my personnel. I do believe that these are the same values that the armed forces has afforded to me, such that I was not demanded to make a choice between my career and my family, because I believe the senior leaders understood my situation and my needs. It is now my time to give back the same to those who need it, and theirs to the next generation. I do believe that by leveraging our strength and tapping into the right resources, I can attest that women can tenaciously push ahead and build equitable work environments where we, both men and women, can both thrive. So I guess that's how I would like to change, to improve the equity for women.
And for me, the equity for women is not just only with women. I do believe that women need to champion ourselves and to boost ourselves up and try to get to be seen and know that women can do it. But I also think the men that we are working with need to be champions for us too. This is not just a women's issue. It's a generalized issue across the board, and men have to buy into this too, to help push women up to the top, to champion for them and support them and nominate them and make sure that that women have the opportunities that they have. And that's where I think change may come.
I think also for men, like you said earlier, Margot, that most of the men's society, the societies are still run by men. And there needs to be a change in their perception of feeling that they're not going to lose control by if somebody else is better for that role, or to be more inclusive, that actually it doesn't lessen them or their role. And that's I think an important change that has to happen. So because why would people not want things to change? It's mostly fear. It's through fear. So we need to have more of an understanding how the whole society is going to benefit where there's equality and equity. And when that conversation keeps happening and is reinforced, that actually everybody benefits, men, women, children, and societies, then I think the men will feel less threatened. I think when we just talk about these things as just topics and words, it's going to be immediate resistance. So I think understanding what these things actually mean for us as individuals, as families, as societies, will allow that change to happen, I think, more easily. There'll be less resistance to it.
Yeah, and Dr. Culotta-Norton, you said something really interesting about the buy-in, right? And we talk about that with any kind of change, kind of anywhere. Leaders can have a great idea and we can spend all this time planning and thinking about it. But unless there's buy-in, whether it's from our team at our offices or the people that we work with in our organizations, that great idea or that change is not going to happen. So you definitely need that buy-in, and you need to make sure that you have people on board and on board to support you. So thank you for that. My next question is, we know that in many countries, equality practically does not exist. We just heard an example from Dr. Verma. How can women from other places contribute to achieving gender equality without touching political aspects around the world?
Well, I actually think that I think we have to have women be seen and their accomplishments be seen through publications, social media, whatever. So if there are some people in these areas where there is no equality that are doing good work, but they're not seen, it's behind the scenes. If someone like if Dr. Verma, who's traveling, if she sees a woman that has done something great, even though she wasn't supposed to be able to do it, but she educated herself, or she made some great contribution. If she brings that back to the world that does have some equity and highlights those people, I think, you can't change. I mean, change only comes from being seen. So if we can get those people, and women in general, women all over the world, if we can highlight what they do, the perception of women as being equal does increase. The other thing is education. It's so important to have education. And in areas where there isn't any, if we could try to make scholarships or something available so that we can educate these women, because there's so much untapped talent in the world, and education is key.
I do believe gender stereotyping and discrimination are sometimes deeply ingrained in our society. Now, overcoming this starts within ourselves. We should be an advocate of gender equality and equity, and we can do this through simple ways in our daily lives. We need to identify gender stereotyping that we unknowingly have amongst one another. So I do believe we have to be conscious of our words, our thoughts, our actions, adopt a gender fair language for that matter. And if we start with ourselves, I do believe that we already are a change maker in our society. So I do believe commitment and bold actions are needed to accelerate progress, including those through promotion of laws, policies, budgets, institutions that are advanced in gender equality. I'd also like to give importance to education, as what Dr. Margot have been saying. Education can impact an entire nation, especially if we do emphasize on healthcare and education, especially for the next generation. So that's all.
I think also just one thing, just about breaking the ceilings of what, a lot of societies, for example, when we're talking about Maasai, even some Asian societies, women are not given that. They can't break the ceiling because there's nowhere for them to aspire to. There's no channel for them. There isn't anything. So that's really, really a difficult one. I think within Asian communities as well, even now within my own family, where we're living in a Western world, but just how we raise our families, how we raise our sons, and how we raise our daughters, there is a discrepancy for sure, even within my own family, how my brother is treated in certain ways, even though we're both equally educated. So I still see those stereotypes amongst my friends and my families in my community. And for example, the women are, even if we have social functions, the women are in the kitchen cooking, they're serving the men. We don't have this a joint congregation where we talk about these things. So these things are going to be, we have to, exactly how Angelica said, we've got to be proactive, we've got to be good leaders, and we've got to keep those conversations open within our families. I think it starts at a very small scale, and if we all do that together as families, how we're raising our children, how we're raising our brothers and sisters, I think that's going to make a big impact.
I definitely agree, and I can kind of speak to that a little bit as well. I have a younger brother that's about a decade younger than me and just as educated. And even within our own family and our own culture, the expectations and the things that he is allowed to do at 10 years younger than me, even when we were growing up, was like, hey, mom and dad, wait a second, how come he can have sleepovers and I can't? And, you know, even sometimes when I go into a new temple, you know, I see there's a very distinct segregation. And then after the services, where are the women and what are the men doing? The men are socializing and the women are getting the food together and kind of corralling the children. So it's interesting to see that, kind of like what you said, even within culture still. What
even
future?
one other thing, just within dentistry, I know I had many male associates who were working with me as well. One of them was Asian, and if I can just recollect, so very well qualified. He was also getting married to a dentist who was Asian, but her role was seen as lesser than him. So we have that within our community, that you might be a dentist, but as a female, it's not as good as the male. So
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of culture and societal dynamic to watch play out. And I will say, to your point, Dr. Coletta Norton, we do intentionally try to feature women and men around the country that are doing things that maybe aren't publicized so much as some of our more prominent leaders. And we do that on our ICD Global Facebook site and across social media and through our newsletters as well. So that is something that we intentionally work on. So thank you for pointing that out. What future do you envision for women in the coming years within the oral health industry? What would you do to improve or convey that human beings are women and men, and as one should prevail without distinction?
In the Philippines, especially in the Armed Forces of the Philippines, I do believe that the number of female dentists entering the military compared to male dentists is higher. Now, from our data in our office, female dental officers who enters the military from 2015 onwards show a staggering of 57%. So you see, there's a shift now of female professionals and female dentists, for that matter, who are being empowered. They are being given more opportunities to work along males in the fields that used to be male-dominated, especially in the military. It's a hope for a brighter future, I suppose, for the next generation. And in essence, I was just lucky that throughout my career, I have been given equal opportunities for professional and personal development. I work hard, not because I wanted to compete with others, but because I believe that it is what's demanded of me. And it is to do what is good, to do what is right, and what is proper, even if no one is looking, is very important. And being in position where I am now, I use my voice to speak out and fight for equality and equity. I emphasized always that in promotions, in designations of key positions, especially in the dental service of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, it should be based on merit. Overcoming this stereotype includes putting the right person in the right job, and that is based on their skills and qualifications in order to fulfill their role successfully, regardless of gender. And I suppose these are how we can improve that human beings, men or women, should prevail without distinction.
Well, I think the future for women in the dental industry is bright. I see more women also in the United States getting into dentistry. The schools are about 50-50, which is increasing the number of dentists in the general population. So I think we're about 35% now, whereas when I began, we were about 6%. So we are really rising. And with that, you are finding more women in leadership positions everywhere. There's CFOs, CEOs, of industry, which is very important because they'll help build, make the policy going forward. We're also, finding ourselves in leadership positions in the American Dental Association. 2 of our last 7 presidents have been women, as well as an executive director. We have had 3 women rear admirals in the last 10 years running the dental corps. Very much like you, Dr. Torres. So we're very proud of that. Although it's just not enough. we still have a long way to go before we are really at a more 50-50, with males. Males are still dominating, but women are coming up. And I do think the more we promote women, the more men help us promote women, the more equity we will get. It's not here, but hopefully it will come in the not too far future.
Definitely. And I see that so much when I travel around the country and speak at all these dental schools, and the questions that I'm getting asked. And even when I look out at the audience, I graduated 12 years ago now. And my class was not about as full of females as the classes I see now. But the kind of drastic shift that I've seen, even in a decade, and even less in being very involved, is significant, and it's kind of cool to watch it play out right in front of my eyes. And so I love that. That makes me so happy that everything that we're doing is empowering other people, right? That's the best part, and paying our blessings forward. I always say we're so thankful that we get to do that. So thank God for that. So do you think, like, in terms of support, do you think that we need to be supported in everything we do? And what about kind of for our own individual values and ability? And how do we help promote this? How do we get that message out there?
Well, being part of the government sector, because I am with the military, I believe in the importance of establishing policies and programs that addresses and prevents, example, sexual harassment, allow flexible working hours, establish support leave policies and benefits, improve mental health services to include counseling, other assistance programs for both men and women. So from this perspective, especially being in the military, I stand for creating an environment where women feel welcome, supported, and recognized for their contributions. And as advocates of gender and development in our country, and as the chief of the policy-making body of the AFP Dental Service, it is our responsibility to cascade and implement these laws and policies within our organization. And individually, it is also our responsibilities to share this, educate others, and abide by this to protect women and also men.
And I also think we need the support of each other. I think women, it's very important for women to have a good networking and mentoring system, not just in our careers, but for our families as well. Women have a special place in this world, by being mothers and working at the same time, and it's a lot to balance, as well as men. Men are fathers and things too, but as you were saying, the women are in the kitchen. Women multitask, and they do have the responsibility for raising those children, a good bit of it. And so to come together and network and see what we can do, see what our problems are, see how to get over them and become the best professionals and leaders and mothers at the same time. I think it's very important that we have the support of each other. And thus, whenever you can, you get into a group of women and, organize something, even if it's a book club, it always helps.
I found within my own practice, we used to break down the barriers and meet every morning. So we'd have a chat about what was happening in the practice, what cases were coming up, and then about the staff, like, did anyone have any particular problems that day? Were they feeling unwell? Did they need any extra support or whatever else? So that way I got, you're very privileged within a general practice because you have a small team. So you can make the changes, you can be responsive to your team, you can see from a day-to-day how that person's performing and why they aren't. And sometimes there's other things going on in their family, and you get to find those things out. So it becomes like a family at work.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, if you care about your team, which I did, and in order to have a practice that goes on for years and years, you have to be a good leader. You have to lead by example. even though you might be having your own traumas, you know, there's a lot of responsibility placed on a leader. And but you know, your responsibilities as a leader are to facilitate your team, to make sure that they're motivated, to make sure that we're performing for our patients, providing the service, and also caring for your team. So all of those things that are necessary to develop the team, to keep them motivated, and also so that they are doing a great job for the practice. So I think open communication, being understanding, being empathetic, with people from different cultures within the practice. And sometimes equity has meant we had a male member of staff who wanted to pray at a particular time, for providing that facility and for him. So it's being responsive, I think, and having open communication, non-judgmental, and knowing that they could always come to me if they needed any help or support within their career.
Thank you for that. What kind of support do we need from men as we go through the journey of gender equality?
Well, I do believe as we go through the journey of gender equality, I believe that one of the fundamental commitment men can take is to start with addressing and overcoming gender stereotyping, sexism, and even discrimination. Men should echo and amplify women's voices, acknowledge their experiences, and take on the role of educating other men in a way that inspires trust and respect. Men, being an effective ally of women, should start with self-awareness of women that is standing side by side with men, not competing with men. I suppose that's the most important thing that we need from men to support us women in gender equality.
I have
And
to
can I
agree
add,
with
women,
you.
I think women also need to support women. I think that's a big one. Women within our families and women within the workplace need to support women too.
Yeah, I really do think, you know, men do have to support us in any way they can. And I think most men today, or I can't say most men, but many men today who have women that are, who have significant others that are in professions, realize that when talking to them, and they are taking on more responsibility to help women move forward, I think. And I think that's where we need more of it, but it's coming.
Definitely agree. So we do want to celebrate female leaders in our campaign for equity, of course. Do you have any female role models or mentors who's inspired you to become who you are today? What contributions has she made in society, and how has she made an impact in your life? I'll tell you, kind of for me, just because this question really resonated with me. There's so many great female leaders across our profession and even in our communities, but I got to know our incoming ADA president, our current ADA president-elect, Linda Edgar, the American Dental Association, for anyone watching worldwide. And she's among a handful of females that are going to be presidents of our national association here that represents 159 or so thousand dentists around America. And learning from her and listening to the challenges she faced, she was actually a teacher, and her husband is involved in dentistry as well. They were very involved in academia in Washington State, in the Pacific Northwest. And she has a son that's a pilot, and just the conversations about her life and the different challenges she's faced and how she grew from those instead of letting those discourage her, and the way that she searched out mentors and people to help her along her way was so inspiring to listen to. And now she gets to lead us, which is kind of awesome. So that's the first person that jumped into my head. So now for all of you, who would that be?
On my part, I do believe that my mother is my role model who has inspired and motivated me to grow without any barriers. My mother is an epitome of a woman with grit, a woman with perseverance, and an unmatched passion for achieving her goals. So my mom really made an impact into my life, and I do believe that she is my role model, being a career woman, being a mother, and being a wife. So my mother is has impacted me so much in who I am now.
You know, again, starting my career when I did, there were so few women that were ahead of me. I didn't really have a role model in dentistry that was women. I had tons of men, my father, my uncle, my cousin, all dentists who I revered. And I also had many professors. All my professors were men. I grew up in a man's world. But I go back and think about one of my grade school teachers who I think about all the time, because she gave me the opportunity to succeed in grade school, always telling me to do the best I can and that I could be anything I wanted to be. She encouraged and supported that. And had she been somebody else that said, oh no, you know, you're a woman, you can't be a dentist, you're just gonna be a mother. Well, you know what? She gave me the tools to succeed, and I became a dentist, a professional, a leader, as well as a mother. And I have to thank her because I do think of her often. A very little small role model, but I think of her.
I just want to follow on from that, actually. Just one of my, just something's come to mind. One of my patients was actually an artist, and I ended up buying some of her art. She was amazing. And I got to know her, and she said to me when she was growing up, her father was actually a clown in a circus. So she was always seeing him dressed up as this clown. And she said to me, when I was growing up, my father said to me, you can be anything you want to be. And she had that freedom because her father gave her that message as a young girl. And she ended up being the most interesting, eclectic, hippie type, wonderful artist, so expressive. And I got to know her, and actually when she had her own grandchild, the love that she had for that grandchild and how she was forming his opinions as a young boy, it's because of the messages she had. She didn't have any barriers to what she could be. So meeting a friend of mine actually the other day for lunch, she's got 2 young girls, and she said, oh, one of my girls said to me, Mummy, I want to be an astronaut today. And she said, it changes every day, but she said the messages I give my daughter are, yeah, that's fine, you can be whatever you want to be. So I think when we give our children, whether it be boys or girls, those messages that actually you can be whatever you want to be, that I think we remember those messages from childhood, and you know, the world is our oyster. So
I'd like to actually add to that a little bit that I think what we're doing as women today, and all the women that we represent today, I think we are being role models for our children and grandchildren coming up. As a matter of fact, one time I was visiting my granddaughters, and my daughter-in-law happens to be a physician. And she said to me, she said, I have to thank you for what you do, that you're continuing to work, and the, you know, the leadership positions that you hold. She said, you are really being a role model for our daughters. They have 2 daughters. And she says, I have to thank you for that. They will always know their grandmother to have been a professional and a leader. And she said, it's just a wonderful thing. So I think what we're doing by doing what we're doing is helping the next generation empower them.
Definitely. I love that. Thank you so much for that. And it's interesting, Dr. Verma, you say these positive affirmations that women are giving their children 20 or 30 years ago, right?
yeah,
The kind of responses I got were, okay, but maybe that can be something that you think about later or on the side, because going to professional school is very important, just like your dad or just like your mom or just like this one or that one. And so it's, again, even just in my lifetime to see that shift in affirming what the next generation thinks and wants, and not sort of invalidating it, and granting people that anyone, right, men or women, male or female children, that you can be whatever you want, and that you have the support around you to get there. That also just is kind of, I think, a reflection of leadership and women being more involved in leadership today. So thank you so much for that. I want to thank all of you for being with us here today. I think we got some great conversation and hopefully inspired some of our viewers to get more involved and to remember that we're all leaders. And some of the faces that you're seeing here today are people that maybe are a little bit more prominent in your society, in your community, in your country, and around the world. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a leader too. And that was one of the best lessons I've learned in my journey, that we all have the ability to make a difference, no matter whether it's on a small scale in your daily life or on a global scale. So thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next ICD Online event. If you have a relevant or interesting topic you would like to see presented by ICD Online, by us, please let us know by contacting the email on your screen. See you soon. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Thank
you, Emily.
you. Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks, Angelica. Thank you, Margaret.